Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to be demonstrating some basics of sound synthesis. We're going to analyze and break down some sounds, some really simple sounds. If you guys like this video, then maybe I'll make a more advanced version later on. So the first thing you need to learn about sound synthesis is how to analyze the sounds that you're hearing. Is the sound short and sweet like a guitar pluck or maybe a drum hit? Or is it more long and drawn out, like a bass guitar or a pad? Does it sound hollow or metallic? Because then you might want to use square or triangle waves. Or maybe it's a combination of all of these or something completely different. Let's break down some common sounds in this video, like some percussion or a trumpet. First thing you want to do is initialize your synthesizer. So I'm just going to put in a fresh analog. I didn't do anything to this. This is just the default analog. And let's create a kick first. So I'm going to rename this analog kick. I'm going to change the oscillator 1 to a sine wave, and I'm going to mess around with the initial pitch. Now what this does is, let's see, if it's back at 0, it's all the sounds how they're normally played. If I increase the pitch envelope interval, as I play it, it's gonna pitch down to its original pitch over time. You see, and then it sticks at that original pitch at the very end. All right, we want this, but I don't want the time to be that long. All right, that's sounding good. Let's bring the octave down. I'm going to bring it down 2 octaves. Again, let's hear how it sounds with and without the pitch interval. Now, all this is doing is creating, it's more like simulating that beater hit when you hit a kick drum. So I'm going to create a MIDI clip. Let's see, just put 4 to the floor for right now, and you can get much more creative with this later on. Something you have to be mindful of is the release. Now, this is just the amplitude release, not the pitch envelope release. It's the amplitude envelope release. If it's too short, it's just going to cut off instantly as soon as you let go of the button or as soon as this MIDI note ends. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So if it's all the way at the lowest is 5 milliseconds. It just sounds really abrupt. You don't want it to be too long, because then it just rings out and it takes away the transient, the impact of the initial hit. I think that sounds pretty good. Okay, now let's move over to the hi-hats. Oops, I'm just going to drag another analog over. Again, the default. So we're going to take off the oscillators at this point. So now when I'm hitting the notes, there's nothing. Turn on white noise. It has a color knob right here, which is just a filter. We're going to turn it all the way up so nothing is being filtered anymore. Okay. And with this, we are going to adjust the sustain, the decay, and the release. So, as I said earlier, hats and different percussive elements are very short and sweet. They're not long and drawn out necessarily, so we're going to make it short and sweet. As we increase the decay, it keeps ringing out. But if we make it shorter, get it to sounding how you like it. I think that sounds okay. Pretty easy, right? So let's do something like this. Oops. I'm going to rename this hat so I know what it is. And let's do the same thing. Let's quick make a snare. So I'm going to duplicate the hat, rename it snare. I don't want this this MIDI clip, so I'm going to drag in the hat, the kick one, and I'm going to turn off every other so that it's just like a snare on a 4 to the floor kind of track. Can't really hear it right now. I'm going to drag the decay a little bit longer. Maybe put mess with the filter a little bit. All right, and the last thing I want to make is a trumpet. So I'm gonna move the analog over here again. Rename this one trumpet. All right, and here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna turn off oscillator 2. I'll leave oscillator 1 where it is, and we're gonna mess with the filter envelope. So I'm gonna turn the frequency pretty far down. I'm gonna put it in the 80s right now. I'm gonna turn up the envelope amount. So this is how much the filter is following this envelope. If I turn it up all the way, it's following it a lot. If I want it to be less extreme, I'm gonna be turning it down. So for right now, we want it to be 6, and I'll show you what this does a little later on. All right, I'm gonna set the attack to around 250 so that it takes time for the filter to open up. Oh, 250, that's way too long. I meant milliseconds, not seconds. Let's turn this back down. You hear how it doesn't come in right away? Like this. Cool. I'm going to bring the sustain all the way down because we don't need that. I'm going to turn up the decay so that it kind of rings out as I hold down the note. Maybe turn up the release a little bit too. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing with the amp envelope. Again, I'm bringing the sustain all the way down. I'm going to move the attack to... That's fine. Now I know this isn't the perfect trumpet, but it is modeled after a trumpet. It has some similar characteristics to how a trumpet sounds. And this is the best trumpet sound I could make in such short time without getting too advanced. Let's try one more if I can have some time. This time, oops, don't want to overwrite the trumpet. This one I'm going to make a quick bass. So we know basses are low. I'm going to transpose it 12 steps down. Maybe another 12. Oops. Okay, so I'm going to mess with the filter envelope here again. Bring the filter down. Got to turn up the envelope amount. So this one is a percentage instead of a 1 to 16 number like on analog. Let's give it some character so it's not just a sine wave. Let's make it a... I'm going to add a square in there. The filter envelope sustain is the level that the filter is going to be at that you want it to hold at when you're holding down the note. Here it does its interesting thing in the beginning, and that's characterized by the attack and decay. But once all that's taken care of, the sustain is where it's going to be held at. I'm going to turn the envelope down because we don't want the attack to be too crazy. We don't want it to open up the filter too much. Once again, this is modeling the real-life version of these instruments. Of course, your bass line can be whatever you'd like your bass line to be. You can make it sound however you'd like it to sound. But I'm simulating a pluck of a bass guitar. That's where the attack and decay comes in, and the sustain is where it's gonna stay at. I hope you've all learned something from this. Please leave a comment below if you have any questions, and please let me know if there's anything I wasn't clear on or that I could do a little better on next time. Maybe next time I'll use some hardware synths instead of software. Thanks again, everyone. Keep practicing and never stop making music.